So there's this massive legal battle over one of the most common weed killers in the world, and it has landed right in the Supreme Court's lap. And honestly, the outcome could change everything, from the warnings you see on products to your actual right to sue a company. Let's dive in. First, just look at this number for a second. 100,000. This isn't just some random statistic, it's the very core of this entire legal showdown. So, what's behind this huge number? Yup. We're talking about more than 100,000 lawsuits filed against the company. These are from people who develop non-Hodgkin lymphoma and say their cancer was caused by being exposed to Roundup. And we're talking billions of dollars already paid out. And that really brings us to the absolute heart of the matter. The whole thing boils down to this one question that the Supreme Court has to answer. Should these lawsuits even be happening in the first place? The answer is going to have major consequences, no matter which way it goes.
Okay, so what's Monsanto's defense here? Well, they argue that they're protected by something they call a federal shield. Let's break down exactly what that means.
Their entire argument hangs on this one law, FIFRA. Now, that's a mouthful, but all you really need to know is that this law gives the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, the final say on what goes on a pesticide's warning label, and that detail is absolutely key to their whole defense. So here's Monsanto's logic, and it's pretty straightforward. First, the EPA looks at all the science and concludes that, nope, there's no cancer link. Because of that, they approve a label that has no cancer warning. Now here's the kicker. Under that federal law, FIFRA, Monsanto literally can't change that label on their own. So their question is, how can a state court punish us for following federal rules? This is a really powerful legal idea called federal preemption. Basically, federal law trumps state law. And this quote from their lawyer just sums it all up perfectly. He's saying that Congress wanted one single rule for the whole country, uniformity, because the alternative, total chaos. Imagine juries in 50 different states all demanding 50 different warning labels. That, he says, would lead to crippling liability. And get this, it's not just Monsanto making this argument. The U.S. Department of Justice is actually backing them up on this. They've told the court that individual states shouldn't be allowed to second-guess or undermine the EPA's scientific process. But that federal shield, it might not be as solid as it looks. The thousands of people suing Monsanto, well, they see some pretty big cracks in it. So let's flip it around and look at their side of the story. And the lawyer for the plaintiffs, they fired right back. They're basically saying that this law, FIFRA, was never meant to be some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card for corporations. It doesn't just strip away a person's right to hold a company accountable in court. So the plaintiffs go right for the jugular. They attack the EPA's process itself. They say it's flawed, that things fall through the cracks. For instance, they point out that the EPA didn't even do its required 15-year safety review of glyphosate. But here's the real bombshell. A federal court actually threw out the EPA's findings back in 2022, saying the agency didn't follow its own rules. That is a massive hit to Monsanto's whole argument. You know, underneath this whole legal fight, there's a huge scientific disagreement. And depending on which major agency you ask about glyphosate, you get a completely different answer. And this really lays out the conflict perfectly. On one side, you have the US EPA saying that glyphosate is unlikely to cause cancer in humans. But on the other side, you've got the World Health Organization's Cancer Research Agency classifying it as a probable human carcinogen. That's the scientific divide that the Supreme Court has to figure out how to navigate. So this isn't just about this one case or even this one product. Whatever the court decides is going to send ripples way, way beyond the courtroom walls. And you could really feel that. I mean, this isn't just some abstract legal debate. When the court was hearing arguments, you had protesters rallying right outside. It's a pretty powerful reminder that there are real people who are demanding some accountability here. And you saw slogans like "People over poison" and signs that said "Make Monsanto pay." It just cuts right to the core of this whole thing, which is about whether big companies are being held responsible for the safety of their products. So let's talk for a second about why this matters so much. If the court sides with Monsanto, it could make it a whole lot harder for anyone to sue any pesticide maker over safety issues. But if the plaintiffs win, it reaffirms the power of juries to protect consumers. And this also hits farmers who really rely on these products, and it could even affect the price of food for all of us. And this fight isn't just in the courts, it's happening in Congress too. Right now, there's a group of lawmakers from both parties trying to add an amendment to the new Farm Bill that would specifically protect a state's right to have its own warning labels. That's a direct pushback against Monsanto's main argument. So now, all eyes are on the 9 justices of the Supreme Court. They've heard all the arguments, and they're wrestling with some really complex stuff. You could tell during the hearings that the justices were really grappling with this. They were asking tough questions to both sides. Things like, what do we do when new science comes out about a product that's been on the shelves for years? And is it actually fair to punish a company for following the rules that a federal agency set for them? The arguments are done. Now we just have to wait. We're expecting a final decision that is going to set a huge precedent sometime this summer. And at the end of the day, this whole massive, complicated legal battle really comes down to this one simple but fundamental question. When it comes to the safety of the products we all use, who gets the last word? Is it a group of federal regulators in Washington, D.C., or is it a jury of our peers in a local courtroom? The answer is really going to redefine what corporate responsibility looks like in this country. It is such a fascinating case with so much on the line. We'd really love to know what you think. Who do you think should have the final say here? Drop a comment below and let us know. And hey, if this explainer helped you make sense of it all, do us a favor and hit that like button. It really helps other people find it. Thanks for watching.